If data management is slowing down your business, you need the Intuit ERP. If one entity is here, and one here, and one here, and one here, you need the Intuit ERP. If scaling your business feels like starting over, you need the Intuit ERP. Intuit Enterprise Suite is the AI-native ERP solution that consolidates, migrates, and automates, all in one place. Learn more at intuit.com/ERP.
Welcome to The Hypnotist, the show that gives you inside access to cutting-edge hypnosis with real clients facing genuine issues. Brought to you by the hypnotherapist demanded by celebrities, CEOs, and even royalty, Adam Cox. These recordings took place live from Adam's clinic in London's world-famous Harley Street. So, get yourself comfortable and enjoy today's episode of The Hypnotist.
Hi, it's Adam here. Now, do you ever feel that there's certain things that you're not allowed to do or feel, partly because of the judgment of other people, or that it could bring shame on you or the people that you love? If so, you might get some real value from this session, because I was working with a client that shame and disapproval and the fear of judgment of others was used as a coercive tool when they were very young. That actually, if they didn't get certain grades in school, they would embarrass the family. If they didn't do certain things, they would bring shame. So they had to deal with that a lot. And what it means is a lot of people that have so much value placed on judgment, they end up being people pleasers. They end up doing things for other people that aren't right for themselves. And quite often they can become martyrs. They sacrifice their own needs for the needs of other people. Now, this is all about the essence of being freed from the slave and the slavery of shame and judgment, because these things are used to control. And if you think about slavery as a metaphor, slaves didn't get to make their own choices. They got to do the very thing that their owner forced them to do, and they were punished quite often in very brutal, harsh ways. And it would be good if slavery was resigned to history. It isn't. Slavery, and there's lots of modern slavery and human trafficking taking place right now in modern society. So most people would agree slavery is a horrible, brutal thing. But if you look at the essence of slavery, it is a lack of autonomy and control. And what does it mean to be truly free? Is to actually do things because you want to do things, even if other people don't like that. That's the key thing. And if you give too much power to what other people may think, then you're voluntarily choosing to operate the similar, not slavery itself, but a similar psychological structure to slavery. So there's quite emotive language used in this deliberately, because it's a pattern interrupt. Nobody wants to be a slave, and nobody wants to be confined or forced or coerced into certain things. So it's quite a liberating, empowering session when you look at the inverse of psychological slavery. So I'd encourage you to think, where in your life are you holding back because you're worried about what other people may think or how you may be judged? And if it's in accordance with your values and you really want to do that thing, then liberating from that is an important thing. And I remember holding back years before starting a podcast and years before becoming a hypnotherapist, because I was worried about the judgment of other people. But it's something I wanted to do, and therefore I did it. And what you tend to find is that people just adjust their opinions. They're like, oh, okay, Adam does that. You know, it might not be what they would choose to do. Most people wouldn't choose to have a hypnosis podcast or be a hypnotherapist. But I chose to do it because it connected with my value system and my interests. And likewise, there will be something for you, something you're really into, other people don't quite get. Who cares? You do what's right for you. As long as it doesn't hurt or harm other people, you do the thing that gives you joy and gives you fulfillment, and other people's judgment are none of your business, in the same way that your choices are none of their business. So hopefully you find this quite a liberating or empowering session, but get that clarity first. What is the thing that you're holding back from doing? And this session was created for a particular client some of their things won't be your things. So if you do like the idea of a bespoke session working with me, there is a suitability test that takes about 60 seconds. And there is also a webinar that I've recorded that explains the whole process of working with me. So check those out. They're going to be in the description, in the more information section of this episode. For now, though, find a quiet, comfortable place where you won't be distracted or disturbed. Relax and enjoy the session.
Take a deep breath in. And as you breathe in a feeling of pure resourcefulness. And as you exhale, allow a sense of release, releasing any tension, any stress, any worries. Breathing in that feeling of relaxation and just allowing that outward breath to continue. Make it longer. Breathing out maybe twice as long as you breathe in. Just a sense of letting go. But what if you were letting go, not just of any tension that you're feeling right now? What if you were letting go of old stories, beliefs, and rules that were built in childhood that simply don't work for you anymore? Breathing in that empowered, resourceful relaxation and just letting go of any need to be dependent on approval. Dependency is a strange thing. If you need something, it can be used against you. It can be a chain, a rope that confines rather than liberates. Shame has been used to control from the very early days of civilizations. How do you get someone to not do something? Tell them that it would bring shame. Make them care what other people think. But what if a wonderful life is on the other side of that false fence? So many never truly live their lives, worried about what strangers might say, might think. What if I do something and it doesn't work out? But what if you're okay with that? What if you're okay with someone having an opinion about how you live your life, and they're entitled to it in the same way that you can have an opinion about theirs? I want you to imagine a child growing up in a house where they were punished whenever they tried to do anything they wanted to do, but they were rewarded whenever that child did something that their parents wanted them to do. That child was threatened with shame and embarrassment. Maybe that child was physically punished if they didn't play by the rules. And just imagine that child becomes an adult and still follows all of those same rules. They make decisions based on what makes other people happy, what creates value for other people. That child dare not pursue their own passions and thoughts in case other people may not like it. And as you think about that child and that life, ask yourself the question, whose life are they living? I want you to get a sense that if someone is living a life based on someone else's values, they are either a slave or a martyr. I want you to imagine a different child, born at some point in history, and because they were a child of a slave, they became the property of the slave owner. The slave owner wasn't interested in what that child, that human wanted. The slave owner had a clear idea of what they wanted. And that slave had to do that, or they were punished. Emotionally, physically, psychologically. Throughout history, there have been slaves that were born and died and didn't get to live life at all based on what they valued, only what their owner valued. And then think of the martyr, the people pleaser, that person that puts the needs of other people ahead of their own. Imagine they were rewarded as a child. They were told that they were generous and kind and thoughtful. They were given lots of validation and approval and love. But it was conditional love. Whenever that child did something just for their own interests, they were called selfish, inconsiderate, disrespectful, ungrateful. Why? Because other people benefited. And maybe that child became an adult and started building an identity of being kind and generous and thoughtful. And that's fine. But not if they never meet their own needs, their own values. To be a martyr is to sacrifice yourself for others. True generosity is having an abundance of what your own values are and choosing to be kind and generous and thoughtful for others. But if your life gets worse, to make other lives better, that is not generosity, that is weakness. That is voluntary exploitation. And I want you to get a sense that you are no slave and you are no martyr. You get to choose how to live your life in accordance with your values, your desires, and no one else's. And I want you to imagine a version of you a year from now that is completely liberated from any concern of disapproval or judgment of others. Imagine that version of you up in the mountains on a trek, walking solo, confidently smiling, connected with nature, connected with yourself. That version of you is living life on your terms. And I want you to imagine that some other people didn't think it was a good idea, but that version of you went anyway. Some people thought it was selfish, inconsiderate. Someone thought that you should be spending your time somewhere else. But that future version of you did it anyway. Not because it's selfish, but because that is your prerogative. The choice to live life in accordance with your values, to fill your cup till it's overflowing with wonderful emotions, accomplishment, wisdom, connection, self-love. And when you have an abundance of your own needs being met, it's true generosity to then offer to help others. When you choose it, it's empowering. If you feel obligated, it isn't. And I want you to see that future version of you, where you're walking in that rhythm, where you're in a trance state, where you're lost in your own imagination and still more than able to walk in that steady rhythm. Imagine floating into that future version of you, maybe on a hillside, on a mountain, trekking on a trail. Maybe there's valleys and lakes, incredible scenery. And I want you to feel that just because you chose this doesn't mean you're obligated to it. True alignment is giving yourself permission to make mistakes, to fail, to make a decision and reevaluate it, to do something in a moment of time that makes sense, and then decide to do something else when it no longer makes sense. I want you to feel that feeling of lightness, empowerment, agency, a deep feeling that you live life on your terms. If you want to travel, you can travel. You get bored of traveling, you can return. You want to start a project, start it. You no longer want to continue with that project, end it. A relationship feels good, a friendship feels wonderful, continue it. If things change, you have a desire to mend it, not end it. But if things can't get to a level that feel like you would choose that very thing today, you give yourself permission to make a new decision. will give you experiences. Experiences will give you emotions. And emotions will give you clues. If something feels empowering, fulfilling, exciting, keep doing it. If things feel like a chore, like an obligation, like there is some responsibility forcing you, you are free to reevaluate. That's what empowerment is. That's what agency is. You don't get to make a decision once and be beholden to that decision forever. You can make a decision, experiences the consequences of that decision, and if you like the feelings, recommit to that decision. And if you don't, make a new decision. Each decision gives you feedback. Feedback either validates your decision or contradicts it. If it contradicts it, you reevaluate and make a new decision. Each iteration has the ability to give you a wonderful journey where you keep what's good and change what isn't. And if other people disagree, disapprove, or judge, that's fine. You can also judge them for not being true to themselves and not having the courage to live a real life. So many people are on the sidelines watching other people play, quick to judge, but terrified to play themselves. Feel like you are unlocking whatever block or lock or restriction has been impeding. Feel a wonderful feeling of liberation. The only permission you need to live life on your terms is your own. And if you're willing to give yourself that permission, then let me know by nodding your head. That's it. You are the giver and the receiver of that permission. And give yourself permission to change, to refine, to adapt, to reconsider whenever you choose. By asking yourself the question, knowing everything that I now know, would I choose to do what I'm doing now? If the answer is yes, you have validated the decision. And if the answer is no, you either change it, end it, or adapt it. If your unconscious agrees that you have full permission to live fully in accordance with how you want to live and adjust it as necessary, let me know by nodding your head. That's it. Then just imagine what it would feel like to get right at the very end of a very long trek and trail. And how would it feel if you were the only one in the world that knew that you did that? If you'd still feel proud, accomplished, and not a single other person knew, then you know this was for you and no one else. And as you hold that thought, it's time to return, taking that feeling of liberation with you. So take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your nose. And wiggle your fingers and wiggle your toes, connect and calibrate into the here and the now. As I count from 1 to 10 to awaken the liberated, empowered, immune to judgment version of you. Starting to count. 1, 2, 3, waking up. 4, 5, 6, more alert. 7, 8, open your eyes, open your eyes. 9, 10, wide awake, wide awake, wide awake.
Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of The Hypnotist. If you've enjoyed this episode or got some value from it, please give it a 5-star rating and review. And maybe you know someone that would also benefit from this particular episode, in which case share the episode with them so they can also get the benefit too. And if you would like to listen to this episode where it's just the hypnosis, so no intro, no outro, no explanation, just the hypnosis and completely ad-free, there will be a link in the description where you can subscribe at a very low cost and only get access to the hypnosis. So if that's of interest, please check that out. Thank you again for being a regular listener of The Hypnotist, and I'll see you again soon for more.